as I thought my way through that video, really what the bottom line came down to was losing, especially as a newer, younger player, which this video is primarily for, can actually be the best way to get better at basketball. There's the cliche saying that the best way to get better at basketball is to play basketball. Now, drills and workouts, which this channel has nothing to do with, drills and workouts are a close second, but in my opinion, the very best way to get better at basketball is by competing in basketball. But especially for newer, younger players who are just starting to learn, I think the very best way to actually make the best improvements and get better fastest is actually by losing in basketball. So let's talk today about how losing can actually benefit you and why it's so important and how you can actually use it to your benefit. Let's do a deep dive on why losing is actually so important, especially for a beginner. With basketball, just like anything else in life, when you first start to do something new, pursue something new, try to get better, develop a skill set for something new, there's always growing pains because you've never done it before. The example I was going to use for the comeback video, trying to make a comeback from losing in a large margin in a game, was like if you're playing 3-on-3 and let's say you were losing, you're playing to 15 and you're losing like 12-3. And it doesn't really matter how you're losing in that game. So meaning if you're playing 3-on-3, you got two teammates, let's say that you are actually playing relatively well for a newer, younger player, but it's your teammates. They're turning the ball over, they're making mistakes. It's primarily because of them that you're losing as bad as you are. Even if that's the case, the bottom line is there's always going to be growing pains. It doesn't matter whose fault it is that you're losing. The worst case scenario is you and your opponents are not playing well, but they still have a large margin of points ahead of you simply because they're better. They're older, they have more experience, maybe they're bigger, whatever it may be. That's the worst case scenario. You're playing well, they are not, but they're still beating you by a lot. The reason I make that example is because that exemplifies what I want to talk about, which is frustration and embarrassment. You're playing as well as you can, and they're not playing well, and you're still losing by a lot, which that specific situation, that worst case scenario, that's probably the best recipe for you to experience frustration and embarrassment. Now, the inherent problem with being frustrated and being embarrassed is it sucks. Being frustrated and feeling embarrassed, especially against players who are older, better than you, that you're trying to impress and get to their level and overcome, it can suck so bad, and you can be overcome by those negative emotions. The worst thing that can happen is that you quit, you give up. And I know all about that because as a kid, I was a terrible, spoiled baby, sore loser. I hated losing, and I would, from time to time, if I found myself out here just losing and just getting destroyed and embarrassed and frustrated, sometimes I would just walk off the court and just quit. That embarrassment, that frustration is only natural, but it's the worst thing that can happen to you if you let it overcome you, if you let it take control to the point where you give up. Now, I don't mean literally give up, like the kind of give up the kind of way I used to, where I would walk off the court sometimes. It also means like pretending that you're still playing when you're not.